Picture this, it's 1993. You're sprawled out on the floor in a dimly lit basement, the glow of a bulky CRT television flickering across your face. In your hands, a chunky Genesis controller, its buttons worn from overuse. On the screen, pixelated hockey players dart across a digital rink in NHL 94. The crowd roars, a tinny synthetic cheer, and you nail a perfect one-timer with Wayne Gretzky. For a moment, you're not just a kid in suburbia, you're at the heart of hockey history. This is where the legacy of hockey video games exploded into the mainstream. But how did gaming get here? And how did we arrive at NHL 25? It's time for a deep dive into the history of hockey video games. Our story begins in 1972, an era of flared jeans, disco beats, and wood-paneled TVs. The Magnavox Odyssey, the first home video game console, rolled out that year. It was a plastic box with no microprocessor or memory that used discrete components like resistors, capacitors, diodes, and transistors. Retailing at $99.95, about $750 in today's money, it was a gamble, but it shipped with 12 games, including hockey. The game was a simplified simulation of ice hockey that reflected the technological limitations of the era. It came with a translucent plastic overlay placed on the TV screen to depict a hockey rink. The console itself displayed monochrome graphics, showing glowing squares that represented the skaters and the puck. The game accommodated up to 4 players, who used paddle controllers with knobs to position their dots on the screen. The objective was to knock the dot representing the puck into the opponent's net, as indicated by the overlay. After a goal, play resumed when the reset button was pressed. The game didn't automatically track goals, so players had to keep track of the score manually, using a pencil and the included notepad. It was a clunky setup, a bit like a board game that integrated electronics. But for hockey fans living in the haze of the 70s, it was a glimpse into the future. Fast forward to 1979, and Mattel's Intellivision burst onto the scene. A direct competitor to the Atari 2600, the Intellivision was a sleek console with gold trim that retailed at $275, about $1,100 in today's money. NHL Hockey was part of Intellivision's early game library, categorized under the Major League Sports offerings, which emphasized realism and depth of play. The game was a 2-player hockey simulation, with each player controlling their team's puck handler, while the computer managed the other team members, including the goalie. The rotating disc on the Intellivision controller was used to direct the movement of the controlled player. The numeric keypad, a hallmark of the Intellivision's design, was used for actions like shooting, passing, and checking, with specific mapping detailed in the game manual. The game had penalties and a penalty box, and included 4 speed settings to adjust the pace of play. But it was noted for being slow, with passing being particularly challenging. Critics appreciated it for its couch co-op experience, but considered it one of the weaker sports titles on Intellivision. Nonetheless, NHL Hockey was a foundational hockey video game, and is even displayed in the Hockey Hall of Fame due to its significance as the first NHL licensed title. Mattel's Intellivision was locked in a console war against the Atari 2600. While both systems fought for gamers' attention, Atari won in a landslide. The 2600 sold over 30 million units by the end of the 1980s, dwarfing Intellivision's roughly 3 million units. This made the 2600 the king of consoles, paving the way for over 500 games, including ice hockey, in 1981. The game was designed by Alan Miller at Activision, and advertised by comedian Phil Hartman, which contributed to its visibility. It was a 2-on-2 hockey simulation, with each team consisting of a skater and a goalie. Players controlled the skater who was in possession of the puck or closest to it, with automatic toggling between players based on proximity. The 2600's joystick was used for directional movement, with the fire button used to shoot the puck. The angle of the shot was determined by the puck's position on the player's stick, offering 32 possible angles. Defensive actions included checking and blocking shots, and there were penalties for infractions like tripping and high sticking, during which the penalized team played shorthanded. The game also offered a single-player mode against the computer. Critics rated it one of the best sports games for the Atari 2600 and highlighted its addictive qualities. Despite the technological constraints of 1981, the game's emphasis on strategic shooting angles was key to improving the mechanics of future hockey titles. Plus, Phil Hartman's advertising campaign helped sell video games to sports fans. The mid-80s ushered in the 8-bit revolution, the third generation of gaming consoles, characterized by the widespread adoption of 8-bit microprocessors. This era brought significant advancements in graphics, sound, and gameplay, reshaping the gaming industry and laying the foundation for modern video games. The Nintendo Entertainment System was launched in October of 1985, emerging after the video game crash of 1983, a downturn caused by market saturation and the release of numerous low-quality games, particularly for the Atari 2600. By 1989, the NES had a 94% market share in North America, compared to the Sega Master System's 6%. The NES's controller was a significant innovation, featuring a cross-shaped directional pad, now known as the D-pad, which replaced the joysticks of previous generations and offered more precise movements. The NES controller also included 2 action buttons, as well as select and start buttons, which provided intuitive controls for a wide range of games. Plus, the NES boasted a diverse library of over 700 titles, spanning genres from platformers to role-playing games, as well as sports simulations. Iconic titles like Super Mario Bros., The Legend of Zelda, and Metroid defined the era, with each setting new standards for their respective genres. Nintendo had a strict quality control policy, requiring third-party developers to submit games for approval, which ensured high-quality offerings in every genre. Among these games was Blades of Steel, released in 1988 by Konami. Originally an arcade-style game from 1987, it was ported to the NES and offered a fast-paced arcade-style simulation. The game was designed for 1 or 2 players, with single-player mode featuring 3 difficulty levels. There was zero affiliation with the NHL, and each team consisted of 3 generic forwards, 2 generic defensemen, and a generic goalie, whose stamina never decreased. Blades of Steel effectively utilized the NES's capabilities, showcasing the console's potential for sports games. Players controlled their team using the D-pad for movement, with the A button for shooting and the B button for passing. The game included a unique fighting mechanic, where a fight would initiate after consecutive bumps between the same 2 players. Fights were shown in a close-up view, and players threw punches using the B button and blocked punches with the A button. The game also included digitized voice samples, which would play at different points in the game. These crude samples, which were limited by the NES's sound hardware, were a precursor to in-game commentary. Blades of Steel was well received, with one critic describing it as gritty 8-bit hockey that wasn't afraid to get its hands dirty. The game was a step forward for sports simulations, with its gameplay opening the door for future developers to showcase their creativity. Blades of Steel's legacy has endured, with re-releases and emulators underscoring its impact on sports gaming culture. 1988 also saw the release of Wayne Gretzky Hockey by Bethesda, 6 years before they hit it big with The Elder Scrolls. Released shortly after the Great One was traded to the Kings, Wayne Gretzky Hockey focused on realism in an effort to appeal to die-hard hockey fans. To help achieve this goal, the game was officially licensed and featured real NHL rosters. It also included skill variation for each skater, aimed at mimicking their real-life attributes. Wayne Gretzky Hockey is generally rated lower than Blades of Steel, although some die-hard fans maintain it's the superior game because of its authenticity. Critics described it as a thinker's game, noting that it leaned into strategy over arcade thrills, and might appeal to hockey tacticians. But regardless of whether you prefer Blades of Steel or Wayne Gretzky Hockey, both games pioneered elements that became central to modern hockey video games. Fresh off the success of John Madden's football, Electronic Arts entered the hockey video game market in 1991 with NHL Hockey for the Sega Genesis. The game featured official licensing from the NHL, allowing for real team names and logos, but lacked licensing from the NHLPA, meaning players were represented by generic names and numbers, such as center number 99, rather than their actual identities. Gameplay was arcade style, focusing on basic mechanics for shooting, passing, and checking. EA made this strategic decision to release the game exclusively on the Sega Genesis, the main competitor to the NES, which aligned with their strategy of creating demand for their early sports titles. NHL Hockey merged the arcade elements of Blades of Steel with the realism of Wayne Gretzky Hockey. It offered a straightforward but well-executed hockey simulation, with intuitive controls for passing, shooting, and checking across multiple game modes. It goes without saying that EA's first hockey title was a pivotal moment in sports gaming. But even at the time, the game was seen as a hit, with reviewers praising its realism and intuitive gameplay. It was followed up by NHLPA 93, which introduced player names but excluded franchise names, which was the result of a small power play in the midst of the NHL vs NHLPA dispute that led to the 1994-95 lockout. Other than that historical footnote, NHLPA Hockey 93 has largely been forgotten. But the game is important, as it was the first EA hockey game to be released for the Super Nintendo. Plus, it experimented with many of the features that became staples of hockey games. NHLPA 93 wasn't perfect, but it set the stage for NHL 94, which many consider the greatest sports game in video game history. EA Sports reached a zenith with NHL 94, released on September 15, 1993 for the Sega Genesis and Super Nintendo. Considered by many to be the most iconic hockey video game of all time, NHL 94's significance stems from its groundbreaking features, impact on future games, and enduring legacy. The game was developed by EA Vancouver, a key studio for EA Sports titles, and was highly anticipated, given the success of NHL Hockey and NHLPA Hockey 93. NHL 94's greatness stemmed from several key aspects, each contributing to its status as a benchmark for sports games. Unlike its predecessors, NHL 94 was the first to secure full licensing from both the NHL and NHLPA. It gave gamers access to NHL team names, logos, and player likenesses. This authenticity was a game changer for hockey fans and helped bring sports gaming to the mainstream. The control scheme was simple yet effective, using the D-pad for movement, A for passing, B for shooting, and C for checking on the Genesis, with similar mappings on the Super Nintendo. This setup was easy to learn, but hard to master, offering strategic depth. A key innovation was the one-timer shot, a feature that appealed to old-school gamers as well as first-time gamers, especially hockey guys who came straight from the outdoor rink to the Super Nintendo or Sega Genesis. The one-timer was a lot of fun, and was key to marketing efforts, but it was the depth of play that made NHL 94 iconic. Part of the mystique of NHL 94 was who designed it, with Mark Lesser given credit as the lead programmer. But many video game historians disagree, attributing the game's design to a variety of programmers, including Michael Knox and Jim Simmons. In any event, the fluidity of player movement and puck physics felt authentic, and each player had unique attributes including speed, strength, and shooting accuracy. The AI was also advanced for the time, providing a challenging opponent in single-player mode and integrating realism during multiplayer. The game's audio was an upgrade over previous titles, but still lacked live commentary. NHL 94's impact on future hockey games and the broader sports genre was profound. It established the template for EA's NHL series, with its control scheme, game modes, and AI behavior becoming the foundation for future iterations. Its massive success also secured EA's position as the go-to publisher for official NHL games, and led to long-term deals with the NHL and NHLPA. NHL 94's legacy is evident in its enduring popularity and cultural impact, with many fans considering it the best in the franchise. Even in 2025, there are active communities dedicated to the game, with annual tournaments like the NHL 94 World Championship, where players from around the world compete. Its impact even extends beyond hockey video games, with the game's realistic mechanics inspiring other EA titles like NBA Live and FIFA, and its approach to AI and player differentiation becoming a model for a wide range of sports simulations. Overall, NHL 94's significance lies in its groundbreaking full licensing, innovative gameplay with intuitive controls and realistic mechanics, memorable sound, and competitive multiplayer, making it a cultural milestone. NHL 94 was a tough act to follow, but EA didn't rest on its laurels. The mid-90s saw gaming leap from 2D sprites to 3D polygons, and EA's NHL series helped lead the charge. In 1996, NHL 97 arrived to PlayStation and PC with 3D graphics. They were blocky by today's standards, but a big step forward for the time. Controls got more advanced, the pace shifted, and Jim Hewson's play-by-play added broadcast buzz. Most fans praised the stylistic change, but some mourned the loss of 2D simplicity. But EA didn't look back, refining its 3D in NHL 98 and adding motion capture in NHL 99 for more lifelike movements. Rivals tried to keep up, with Sony's NHL Face-Off focusing on an authentic hockey simulation, contrasted with Midway's Wayne Gretzky's 3D Hockey, which went full-on arcade, but neither made a dent in EA's dominance. The 2000s brought real competition to the hockey gaming market. EA's NHL series still ruled, but 2K Sports NHL 2K and Midway's NHL Hitz series entered the chat, sparking a golden age of innovation. EA's NHL 2001 brought sharper graphics and introduced a big hits button, while 2K's NHL 2K countered on the Dreamcast with impressive deep sim mechanics. But NHL Hitz 2002 completely flipped the script. 3-on-3 madness, flaming players, and pure arcade glee. IGN called it hockey on a sugar high. Overall, it was an exciting time to be a hockey fan, with the ability to switch between 3 high-quality titles, each with something unique to offer. Unfortunately, 2003's NHL Hitz Pro marked the end of Midway's memorable franchise, leaving EA and 2K in a head-to-head battle. The Xbox 360 and PS3 arrived mid-decade, and both franchises took advantage of the technological advancements. EA's NHL 07 unveiled the skill stick, a revolutionary use of the right stick to control shots and dekes. 2K's NHL 2K6 and 2K7 countered with HD graphics, a pro control system, online leagues, and a new cinematic gameplay setting called Cinemotion. EA's NHL 08 built on the skill stick with smarter AI and also introduced online leagues, with NHL 09 introducing Be a Pro mode, alongside robust 6v6 online play. The game was a fan favorite, with IGN calling it the most feature-rich hockey title EA had ever delivered, and retrospectives rating it as a high point in the franchise's history. 2K's NHL 2K8 fought back with face-off mechanics for stick battles, and NHL 2K9 added Zamboni mode for a quirky bit of fun. EA's NHL 10 introduced board play and first-person fighting, and the franchise made its Wii debut with NHL Slapshot, also releasing a mini hockey stick peripheral to capitalize on the trend of motion-based gaming. NHL 2K10 made some incremental improvements, but the gap between 2K and EA was starting to widen. NHL 2K11, a Wii and mobile exclusive, marked the end of the franchise, with 2K accepting defeat after a decade of fierce competition. Even though 2K didn't survive, its legacy endures, as the EA vs 2K rivalry fueled a golden age of hockey video games. Honorable mention also goes to NHL Face-Off 2001, NHL Blades of Steel 2000, and Gretzky NHL 2005 and 06, which offered even more alternatives for fans like me, who love trying as many titles as possible. The 2010s dawned with EA Sports holding the keys to the hockey gaming kingdom. After 2K Sports bowed out with NHL 2K11 in 2010, EA's NHL series faced no major rivals. NHL 11 kicked off the decade with a new physics-based game engine and the Hockey Ultimate Team mode. The following year, NHL 12 introduced more interactive goalies, improvements to the physics engine, and an updated Be a Pro mode. NHL 13 rolled out true performance skating on PS3 and Xbox 360, tying movement to momentum and edge control. NHL 14 took it further, adding one-touch dekes and the NHL Collision physics engine for bone-rattling hits. These titles also expanded online play with GM Connected. NHL 15 marked EA's jump to the PS4 and Xbox One, boasting stunning visuals and NBC sports commentary from Mike Emmerich and Eddie Olczyk. But the transition faltered. Modes like GM Connected and online team play were cut from next-gen versions, leaving fans frustrated. EA rebounded with NHL 16, restoring the cut features and adding a visual on-ice trainer, although the release still brought controversy. Patrick Kane and Jonathan Toews were selected to appear on the cover together, but Kane was removed when he became the subject of a police investigation over a sexual assault allegation. NHL 17 introduced Draft Champions, a quick build mode for Hockey Ultimate Team, and NHL 18 introduced NHL 3s, a fast-paced, arcade-style 3v3 mode that echoed the spirit of NHL 94. Both titles leaned into online play, enhancing the EA Sports Hockey League with deeper customization and drop-in games. The shift in focus towards online competition was popular among fans of online play, but others felt this shift caused the core gameplay to stagnate. NHL 19 debuted World of Chell, unifying online modes under a progression system with outdoor rinks and flashy gear, fronted by PK Subban. It also added the real player motion tech for smoother skating. NHL 20 polished this with RPM tech upgrades and squad battles in Hockey Ultimate Team. Both games leaned into casual fun and esports potential, though critics noted limited changes in the core gameplay. With 2K Sports gone, EA faced little direct rivalry. Smaller titles like Super Blood Hockey offered retro charm on PC, but didn't present any real competition to EA. Instead, the battle was internal. Fans debated whether ice tilt was real, an alleged mechanic favoring weaker players. which EA denied, despite their dynamic difficulty adjustment patent. Technical hiccups like NHL 15's launch and repetitive annual updates annoyed fans, but the series retained its popularity. From 2020 to the present, the franchise has embraced next-gen consoles, refined its online ecosystem, and leaned into realism and accessibility. NHL 21 launched in October 2020 for PS4 and Xbox One, with Alex Ovechkin back on the cover. Delayed by the COVID-19 pandemic, it skipped next-gen consoles at launch, but offered forward compatibility. The revamped Be a Pro mode stole the show, adding cinematic storytelling and dialogue choices that shaped a player's career arc, from CHL prospect to NHL star. New deking mechanics and Hockey Ultimate Team Rush mode, a fast-paced arcade twist, kept it fresh, though its aging Ignite engine drew mixed reviews. NHL 22 dropped in October of 2021, marking EA's full next-gen debut on PS5 and Xbox Series X and S, alongside PS4 and Xbox One. Powered by the Frostbite engine, it delivered upgraded visuals, detailed player faces, and fluid animations. Superstar X Factors added unique abilities for standout players, and Hockey Ultimate Team expanded with cross-platform card trading. Despite these new features, the game's rocky launch with bugs and missing features tempered its reception. The cover of NHL 23 featured Trevor Zegras and Sarah Nurse, the first female cover athlete in the series' history. Cross-platform play arrived, uniting online communities. Last Chance Puck movement was also introduced, allowing players to move the puck after they'd been hit or tripped. But server woes and microtransaction gripes left some fans annoyed with the title. NHL 24 introduced the Total Control system, with overhauled skill stick mechanics. It also pioneered the Exhaust engine, which tracked player fatigue, impacting late-game play. Despite these updates, a lot of people felt the franchise was becoming stale, with a lack of concrete changes and failure to successfully implement the new features. NHL 25 launched on October 4th, 2024 for PS5 and Xbox Series X and S, featuring the Hughes brothers on the cover. The Ice Q system debuted, an AI-driven overhaul promising smarter teammates and opponents, paired with the next-gen vision control for precise skating. Much like NHL 24, the new features were underwhelming, with a Metacritic score of 66 reflecting mixed reviews. Still, no major rivals have emerged to challenge EA's NHL franchise. Tape to Tape has earned buzz for its fresh take and fun arcade style, and mobile games like Hockey All-Stars offer casual play. But with the NHL franchise hitting a wall of stagnation, the door is open for a new rival franchise to step up and disrupt the status quo. A new contender could introduce fresh ideas, innovative mechanics, and an approach to hockey gaming that reignites the passion of fans. Beyond challenging the NHL franchise, this competition could spark a new golden age of hockey gaming, pushing EA to rethink its strategies and up its game. That's all for this look back at hockey video games. Let me know your favorite hockey video game of all time. And if you enjoyed this video, hit the like button and join our growing community of hockey history enthusiasts by subscribing to the channel.